Well, this is the B31 Plunger I restored quite recently, and it's done about 400 miles on the road with no issues really, and I thought it was time to tighten down a few bolts, including the head bolts, and change the oil and another few things. But the problem was, when I came to tighten the head bolts down, two of them gave way, just stripped out, which was a problem. Now, when I did the rebuild, I ordered 4 stainless steel head bolts from a famous supplier down south, and when they came they were so loose in the threads on the head I had to send them back and replace them with some ordinary Bsa P head bolts, and they were quite slack in the head as well, and I'm not sure whether the threads are worn in the head or whether the bolts I've been using are not up to standard. So the plan now is I'm going to take the head off and I'm going to helicoil the head bolts, and I'll check out these bolts now to see whether the threads have gone or whether it was the cylinder head itself. Apart from that, the bike's been running well, but I know these bikes, there's no head gaskets on these bikes, and I did lap in the head and barrel together, but I've noticed on startup they do pop, and this can continue for quite a while until there's a bit of a carbon build up which naturally seals the head to the barrel. So while I've got it stripped, I'm going to lap them in again and see if that improves on that. Once the bike's running, that's not noticeable, it doesn't happen. It's only on startup you get a puff from between the head and the barrel. Well, because of that, it means now that the B31 swing arm, this Green Goddess it's been christened, that restoration is going to go on hold for a short while. Just as it was when I got it back from Phil Pearson. I'll just show you it's still working. So I won't be touching that for a short while now. I'll just be getting on with the black plunger model. And of course, in the meantime, if I fancy a ride out, I just jump on my Honda. This is an NC 750 fully automatic, and I've got to say it's the best bike I've ever had, and I love it to bits. So that's handy. I'm still out on the road if I need to be. And as you can see, there's carbon. That's what's been blowing out on that side there, and this one as well. I think these two are okay, but those two definitely had come loose, and that's where the problem was. So I'm going to have a good look at these now, and maybe put some helicoils in, which hopefully will solve the problem. Well, these are two brand new head bolts, and as you can see, they're very slack in the holes there. These are two old Bsa bolts. They're not the head bolts, but they're the same thread, and as you can see, they're more or less solid in the hole there, whereas those are very loose. Well, I've just found out what the trouble is with this front left hand bolt. As you can see, they're attached and they go through. This is the part that goes into the crankcase. But if you look on the bike, this one is completely snapped off at the bottom, and of course it's not holding anything down. I'll check the others in a moment, but I've got a feeling that's the big issue there. Well, this is the head bolt that snapped off at the bottom, which is causing all the problems. And I thought the threads were stripped, but they weren't. But this part here has broken off, and unfortunately it's dropped into the crankcase now, and you can actually hear it rubbing on the flywheel. You can hear it there, it's actually rubbing on the flywheel. But if you look closely, you can see, I don't know, looks like there's a thread on there, but it's just sheared off there. You can actually see the bright metal where it's broken off, which is not good. In fact, these bolts are crap. Well, this is where I'm at the moment. I was faffing about with these all day yesterday, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is one of the bought-in bolts with the nut welded on here and the stop welded at this end, and that's how they've done it. They've tapped the end of the rod, and they've screwed this on and welded it, and that gives you the stop. So I've done something similar. I've made a stop for the end there, and I've welded it on. But I've turned this shaft out of a solid bar, this hexagon bar, and the nut part is now an integral part of the shaft. It's not welded, it's part of the shaft, just turned down. So it's working fine. The only problem is, and I'm worried about it, is that if this ever fails, this weld fails when I tighten up and it drops into the crankcase, I'm back to square one. So my plan is, I've turned this shaft here 3/8, hasn't been tapped yet, and I've turned the stop on the end, which works fine in that part there. And what I need to do now is weld a nut on, and I've turned a little bit of I've spun it around the shaft actually, a little bit of filler rod, and I've countersunk in there, so I should be able to weld that up okay. And the outcome is this part will never fail because it's part of the shaft, and if the weld gives way on this, it's just a matter of re-welding it, and at the very worst taking the head and barrel off to put a new one on. But at least I know nothing is ever going to drop into the crankcase again. So that's the plan now. I'm going to make 4 of these and see how we go with that. Well, this is where I'm at. I've faffed about for a few days with this now, and originally I tried to turn these bolts out of this hex bar, which wasn't successful really, and I put a lot of pressure on the lathe. So I sent off for some silver steel 1/2 inch round bar, and I've turned them out of that, and this is where I'm at the moment. I've got 4 new studs. The threads were cut single point threads, tiny bit oversized, and they're a perfect fit into the cylinder head now. And I've got to take these off the old studs and locate them there and set this up so I can weld these onto there, and I'll be left with a copy of the original, but they will have to be welded onto there. This is one, the prototype I made, which was turned out of the hex bar, but as you can see I had to weld the bottom there, and I don't want to do that because if it breaks away it ends up in the crankcase, which is where I'm at the moment. So all I need to do now is to weld these nuts onto the shafts, and that's the finished job, I hope. Well, as you can see, the 4 bolts are finished now. They've been zinc coated and I've just given them a little polish in the lathe. They're ready to go back into the engine now. The only thing left for me to do is to try and retrieve the broken part of the stud out of the crankcases. I've got the engine out of the bike and it's on the bench, and I'm hoping I can turn it upside down and shake the piece out. If not, I'm going to have to strip the crankcases, which is something I don't really want to do. See how we go. Well, must be my lucky day, because there's the part that's fallen into the crankcases there. And my mate Jim said turn the bike upside down, but I decided to take the engine out and turn the engine upside down and spin it round, and look, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the part that came off the end of the cylinder head stud, and you can actually see where it's broken off there. I'll get it a bit closer here. You can see that. That's just come away, has been threaded, and that's threaded. So they must turn those, screw them on and weld them, but that's just given way. What a load of crap. Right, but I'm very happy because I don't have to part the crankcases now, which have been oil tight, and I've been very happy with. So it's just a case of getting this back into the bike now, and happy days.